China, Soft Power in Africa. That's the original title, and I readjusted. I sent it to him, but he was too busy. So it's not.
I did my part.
It's not changed yet. Yeah. But it doesn't matter. I will keep my own topic about China's transformation, ideas and strategies. At the same time, I will perhaps cover a bit China's influence in Africa, or at least its ideas and their impact. So without much ado, I will start my presentation. And a very quick overview of China. It's it's the largest country in terms of population, 1.3 billion people, which means more than the total populations of Europe 27, United States, Japan, and Russia, and more. And its total land area is 9.6 million square kilometers, which puts China the third largest country after Russia and Canada. It's the world's longest continuous civilization, and this is very important. My book, actually in English, it's called China Weiwei, The Rise of Civilization State. I try to make an argument that China is a unique country. It's almost like, if I can draw an analogy, to Roman Empire, as if Roman Empire had continued to this day, but modernized, with modern economy, with all its regional diversities, but everyone speaks Latin. But China is actually bigger than EU of 27 only represent 1/3 of China's population. So the complexity of this kind of country should be bear in mind. And we use the same written language, but with hundreds, thousands of different dialects. And the Chinese population is largely homogeneous, which means 92% belong to one ethnic group, Han group. And China was first unified in 221 BC. So there's a long history of united sense of unity. And the most important and influential philosophy is Confucianism, which was almost the same contemporary, slightly earlier than Plato of ancient Greece. And if I have to cut a long story short, the basic idea of Confucianism is, I call it 3 harmonies. Harmony between individuals, between human beings, that's first harmony. Second harmony between human beings and nature. And third harmony, the harmony within oneself, with the internal harmony. So this is a very quick overview of China.
Not harmony among nations.
And now this is, again, a very quick summary of the key differences between China under Mao and China since Deng Xiaoping. So the first 3 decades of China since founding of People's Republic in 1949, and second period since Deng Xiaoping from 1978. So the Mao era was characterized by what's called politics in command, because Mao had a very clear ideological objective, or goal, to create a kind of new socialist man, which is by no means easy. So we experienced a lot of ideological campaign, trying to build up a new society, try to shape a kind of new human being. It's more or less a centrally planned economy, copied on Soviet model with some modifications. And it practices self-reliance. So little foreign trade, no foreign direct investment. So that was the situation of the era of China in the first 3 decades since 1940. And then after the Cultural Revolution, China began to embrace this reform and opening up, which was the policy of Deng Xiaoping, and this policy has been continuous up to now. If I again try to cut a long story short, it's number one, economics in command. As Deng Xiaoping said, in the next 100 years, we should put focus on modernization. And China practiced what's called a socialist market economy, which tries to combine the importance of the market in allocating of scarce resources, at the same time to keep socialism, state ownership to such a degree that we can ensure greater fairness and justice. And then China pursues open door policy. China starts extensive trade with other countries. China attracts foreign direct investment. China sends students abroad everywhere. And so this is the next 3 decades up to now. And this is a quick assessment of Mao's China. On the part of the strengths, I would say during the Mao era, China achieved initial industrialization, which means China can produce virtually everything, but not in the scale or in the quality we desire. A lot of social progress was achieved. Women's liberation, extensive health care for ordinary Chinese. So lifespan in China is much longer than most developing countries. And also the literacy campaign, to wipe out illiteracy. And also peasants went through this land reform. So peasants were given their land in the 1950s. Of course, later it was communized, which was regrettable. But there were also very clear weaknesses, because during the Mao era, so much attention was given to ideological campaigns. And China went through the Great Leap Forward, which was disaster, caused a lot of famine, and also the Cultural Revolution, which was very much anti-intellectual. And also, in terms of the society, it's egalitarian. Actually, it's excessively egalitarian. As a result, people lost incentive to work. However you work hard, you got same pay. And the result was China, like the Soviet Union, was a kind of shortage economy. Everything was rationed. I came from Shanghai, which was at that time the most developed part of China. Still everything, from rice to cooking oil to cloth to bicycles, everything was rationed. And so that was the situation before China's reform started. Now, China's rise since 1979. This is impressive. For over 3 decades, we registered GDP annual growth rate of 9.5%, trade growth rate of 15% a year. So the total trade volume reached $3.5 trillion last year. I think everything goes as currently the situation goes. Perhaps China will be the largest trading nation in 1 or 2 years. And the poverty reduction, that's important. China reduced extreme poverty by 600 million people. China was the first developing country that reached the Millennium Development Goal. Actually back in the 2004, I think, or 2003. And China now also has the world's largest foreign exchange reserves, actually too large, $3.18 trillion. And in the time of financial crisis today, many countries look to China for rescuing whatever packages. And at this moment, G20 is going on. Of course, one important thing is to what extent China and so-called other members of BRIC are willing to contribute to this rescue package. Furthermore, China has a huge domestic saving, roughly $5.7 trillion. Of course, in Chinese currency mainly, but it's also a huge amount of money. And China has also become one of, or even the largest export of tourists. Last year, it's 70 million visits from China. And of course, when I say visits, it's not, it could be I go to, say, from Beijing to Vietnam and to Europe, so that's our 2 visits. So it's 70 million trips, but at least perhaps 30 million people went abroad. So this is a rough estimation. And then you can look at the opinion surveys. 87% Chinese feel optimistic about the future of their country. And this is very important. And in the Western media, China was portrayed as a very insecure country. The leadership afraid of everything. And there was a rising trend in China which will overthrow the government. And also we believe that dissidents represent the future of China. No, this is rubbish. This is not true, as I told you. Over the past 25 years, you check this media forecast about China. Hundreds, 95% wrong. You check back numbers, New York Times, Herald Tribune, Economist, and more, and CNN, BBC. You check these leading sinologists, how they predict China 20 years ago, 10 years ago, 5 years, and now. What's wrong with this always pessimistic and eventually cannot be wrong forecast? Asking this ideological bias. They fail to see China as it is. In contrast, my prediction cannot be, since 15 years ago, accurate. So that gives me a bit of self-confidence. And no, I don't need to, this is WTO. Yeah. Now this is an important example about the concrete progress of Chinese reform for ordinary Chinese. And because in the Chinese social mood, you have this important, things to buy for marriage. Sorry to be slightly a bit too materialistic, but this is the case with China today. After 200 years of poverty, bear with us. We try to be a bit materialistic, but things will be better in the future. In the 1970s, 3 elements are watch, bicycle, sewing machines. In the 1980s, black-white TV, refrigerator, motorbike. In the 1990s, color TV, computer, mobile phones. And today, an apartment or house with your own ownership, a car and cash, a lot of cash. Unbelievable. I was amazed. College graduates in China are expected to have their own apartment, which means in their early 20s or mid-20s. It's a kind of normal expectation. Of course, they receive help from their parents, but still, it reflects this, to be honest, in human history, we have never seen this kind of growth of prosperity and wealth for a nation the size of China. And home ownership today in China, it's already higher than most, if not all, developed countries. In the rural country, in the countryside, it's 100%. In the cities, in the towns, it's 83%. Actually, it's even higher, but this is an old figure. And also, you can look at this increase of living floor space since 1979, from 4 square meters per person to 27 square meters. In Shanghai, it used to be 4 square meters 25 years ago for 4 person. Now it's 23 or 24. Now I try to explain why the China's success and what kind of ideas and strategies behind this success. First is a guiding philosophy. It's called Deng Xiaoping's model, seeking truth from facts. It's very much in the British tradition of empiricism. From John Locke, from David Hume, to Bertrand Russell, to Edmund Burke, this long line of tradition of empiricism. You believe in facts. You have to, the criterion of truth is facts rather than other things. And we found that neither the Soviet model nor the European or Western model has really worked for developed countries. We do not believe in dogmas. We believe in facts. So China decided to explore its own approach. Deng Xiaoping called this socialism with Chinese characteristics. Oh, sorry. And then, number 2, gradualism, not revolution. This is very important. China rejects categorically this so-called shock therapy. And Deng's famous phrase is crossing river by feeling for stepping stones. For communists, by no means easy, because the traditional mentality of a communist, you can plan everything. But Deng said, no, let's be very modest. We cannot. We don't have this capability. So let's cross the river by feeling for stepping stones. This trial and error approach. But what's important for them is he has reoriented this strong state inherited from era Mao from pursuing utopia, as Mao did, to pursuing modernization. It has worked. And 3, constant experimentation. For all the reform initiatives China has carried out, it all started with experiments, pilot projects. If it's good, it's extended. If it's not good, it's closed. So this is the basic approach China has adopted. So we started with 4 special economic zones along China's coast, where we experiment all kinds of reform initiatives, market economy, foreign trade, foreign direct investment. And number 4, performance legitimacy. If the Western democracy can be described as procedural democracy or procedural legitimacy, in the case of China, it's performance legitimacy. At all levels, the cadres must fulfill certain criteria. Otherwise, your chance of promotion is 0, like promotion of eradication of poverty. So this is part of the mandate of all the cadres at all levels of Chinese society. Same with attracting FDI, foreign direct investment. Now, very good about this is so-called green tax. You have to improve the environment as part of your credentials to get promoted. Now, this is a more controversial, a developmental state. It's a relatively strong state, neutral state, which is capable of shaping national consensus for modernization, for public goods. It ensures broad political stability, and it continues and pursues many industrial policies. And I just mentioned this example. During the 1980s, a think tank in China claims it has studied all the models of development across the world. It came with these 4 scenarios. Number 1A, it's called hard state, hard economy, which means you have authoritarian state, you have command economy. A good example of this is Russia, or Soviet Union. Obviously, this example was not convincing. And B, you have a soft state, soft economy, where the Western one man, one vote, one person, one vote, multi-party system, and then you also have more or less private economy. That's the example of the West. But the studies suggest that, yes, there's work for the Western countries and not work for non-Western countries. They have C, soft state and hard economy. The state is plural democracy, but the economy was strongly controlled by the center, which was the case of India before its reform started in the 1990s. And they have D, hard state and soft economy. You have an authoritarian state, but the economy is more or less softer than command economy. That's an example of NICs, newly industrializing countries, or emerging economies, little dragons, South Korea, Taiwan, Hong Kong, Singapore, the 4 regional small tigers, which actually, whatever problem they have, registered impressive economic growth and more or less modernized. So with this kind of study, you can see the Chinese model is an extension of this, what they call model of NICs, or institution model. More or less based on hard state with the soft economy.
Do you think there's a immediate component among the 4? If you looked at these 4 models, would you say that the model, if you studied it, you'd say the media system in the hard state, hard economy would be different from a hard state, soft economy, etc. I'm not sure.
Oh, you mean the role of media?
Yeah.
I'll come to that later.
Okay.
Yeah, I just gave an overall picture and I come to media. And in terms of the overall political, economic, and social systems, China has tried to pursue what's called mixed approach. So you can see many examples of what's called old and new coexisting. An example is China's price reform. Price used to be fixed by the central government, but with the market economy, price has to be deregularized and liberalized. But China adopted this dual approach, mixed approach. They allow, say, for one product like steel, a certain percentage in the controlled state price, which is cheaper. And a large part became flexible market-determined price. But gradually the trend is the market force gradually replacing the state role. But again, even today, it's more or less it's mixed. The proportion of each differs from time to time. And then China has adopted this selective learning. China learned a lot from other countries, from the West. For instance, China learned a lot from Germany for the social welfare policy. China learned a lot from the United States in terms of building up its stock market. China almost copied Singapore for many of its housing initiatives, and so on and so forth. But it's selective. China never copies any single one. China has always maintained its, what the jargon says, policy space. We can decide when and where to learn, to copy, to learn selectively, or to reject. This is very important. And then China has, especially look at past 3 decades, demonstrated a clear sense of sequence and priorities. So the overall pattern of change in China is clearly identified. It's always easy reforms first, rural reforms first, urban reforms second, because rural reform is easy, urban reform more difficult. And economic reform first, political reform second, coastal changes first, interior part of China second. So this pattern allows China to have a more orderly transition and a virtuous cycle. The first stage of reform lays ground, accumulates experience for the second stage of change. And number 9, cautious political change, political reform. And China has conducted its own political reforms with very clear objective to facilitate China's economic development, to facilitate improvement of people's living standards,